Welcome to another chat with Avid. David Harpole here with Jack. Morning, Jack.
Morning, David.
So today we're going to talk to you a little bit about tools and then matching them to your objectives. And really where this came about was Jack was just watching the news this morning and heard some interesting things. And then we started talking about it and here we are. So let's jump into it. Tell me about what you heard and where your kind of brain and thought process went from it.
Well, this happened this morning, but this happens all the time. I see this everywhere. On the news this morning, they were saying, here's some, I guess, tax tips for the end of the year. They bring, I suppose an expert on, and he goes through here's what you can do for the end, or here's what to do the end of 2020, I suppose, to help yourself out. I don't really know what the purpose was, but he just basically lists through what I would call they're just tools. What we've talked about is these are tools or tactics, things you can do, sure. And he lists 3 or 4, but it's just a list of tools. But I see this everywhere. I'll see it it's everywhere on the internet. You'll hear it on the news. You'll hear it all over the place. Books are doing this. They tend to be overviews of tools and tactics, which is fine. I think they're good to learn tools, so you have a toolkit to pull from. They're not great as prescriptive. Here's what you should do, because your personal situation makes a huge difference. So they get you maybe 90% of the way there, 80% of the way there, let's say, but that last 20% is that's what matters. So
when you're saying tool though, let's kind of clarify that. The tool would be I'm going to guess, you tell me if this is right. I'm a business owner, and a great tool to defer my income taxes would be to set up a retirement plan. Something like that?
Sure. Right. Correct. Retirement plans are always a big one. The whole, max out your 401k. Well, possibly. I wouldn't say that's bad advice per se. You're saving the money, I think, is pretty good. But your individual situation does make a difference. What are you trying to accomplish? What is the purpose of what you're trying to do? And how does that particular tool apply to your purpose? So we could sit here for 20 minutes and list 1,000 tools. I know lots of tools. I know tools out my ears. I know so many tools, but most of those things just don't apply to everybody. The good thing about learning the tools is you do have, like I said, you have a toolbox to use. It'd be if you're a carpenter and you know how to use 50 different tools, that's terrific, because you are presented with a problem. You know which one to pull from the toolbox. Just going and grabbing a tool and then trying to figure something out is the opposite way of doing things. So anytime you're hearing on the news, or it doesn't even matter, any place, from your friends, from your family, people that are going to give you broad-based advice, more likely than not what they've heard from others, broad-based advice, is not always applicable to you. Most things are not generally applicable. There's very, very broad things that we could say, like save more, or, save money, I guess. That's about as broad as you could make it. But,
reduce debt.
Yeah. There's lots of nuance in there, though, tons of nuance. Even the old debt discussion is very nuanced, is what you're trying to do. So I think it's just more like a pet peeve of mine that, I think the thought is great, is to educate people on things that you can do. And there's a lot of debate around financial literacy and teaching people things. But you can only teach people tools. Teaching people how to use the tools is much more difficult, because it's like a one-on-one type thing. Your particular situation makes all the difference in the world, and your particular circumstances make the most difference as to which tool that you use. So
the idea would be to have someone, whether that's a trusted friend, an advisor, or something that can help educate you on these various tools. Maybe it's retirement planning, and it's reducing taxes and refinancing houses, all these tactical things we talk about often, but then really knowing your situation and should I be doing this? Should I not? And where does it rank in the priority of what's most important to me, right? Because I feel like we have over the years realized that, one, we're all different, as you had mentioned earlier, but two, what's most important in order to actually make progress, whether that's saving more, reducing debt, getting more out of life, is to take action. And one way to do that is to prioritize and say, this is the most important thing for me, for us, for the business right now. And does this tool help, hurt, or it's indifferent for that objective? And really approach it strategically from that fashion. Is that right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, right. It's strategy first, objectives, which honestly is more difficult. It's much more difficult to have a good uh, grasp on what you're trying to do. So anytime we talk to anybody, the hardest part a lot of times is having us, people that are talking to us, be able to articulate the things that they're actually trying to do. They have some feeling as to what they want to do, but it's difficult to articulate what it is. Maybe sometimes they even lack the imagination or the know of what is even possible. What even could I do? I don't even really know what I could do. But here's the things that are important to me, and here's what my values are. I'd like to match up my strategy and my tactics to my values instead of making my values match my tactics, which a lot of times what happens is you just start doing stuff tactically using tools, and then you just convince yourself that it's right because you've already made the effort to do it. So I've already done these things. I've used these tools. Now let me organize my life in a way that matches the tools instead of saying, well, this is what I want to happen. And let me pull from the thousands of options that I have available to me to match my values and my objectives. So hearing those things, and I think most people will probably blow the stuff off that's on the news and completely ignore it, but it's constant. Like, it's on the news, it's in books, it's on the internet. Like, there's constant, very general advice that goes out as to what you should be doing. Some of it is fine. I don't know that it's bad per se, but it can be bad used in the wrong way, or if you apply it to what you're trying to accomplish and you haven't thought through the objective, it can actually be pretty bad. So that makes sense.
Yep. No doubt about it. So any advice specifically, I guess specifically, but broadly to everybody that's listening
Right.
pertaining to this?
Yeah. So let me give you some very general tools that you could use. I think if I was going to give advice on what to do, and we probably beat this to death, it's really having a good grasp on what your objectives are, because it's much easier to then pull from the tools when you know what your objectives are. Now, that's going to be difficult to do. I think there's a number of ways that you could do it. I think in a general fashion, just writing down things is probably good. So, maybe it's writing down your values or writing down the things that you'd like to accomplish, I think is a pretty good start. We're always going to be advocates of enlisting some kind of unbiased third party person to do it, whether that's a professional or it's just a good friend that is honest with you, is talking those things through, a spouse, let's say, and just getting it out in the open and defining your objectives. And then, you can come up with a strategy and then you can use the tools. But learning about the tools is valuable. I don't want to say that it's worthless. Knowing the tools is valuable. The more tools you can learn about and add to your toolbox, the better, because then you just have more things to pull from. But randomly grabbing at tools that you've heard about from the internet or a book or something is probably not the best move. So my advice would be just first and foremost, know your objectives. So.
Yep. And if we can help in any way or fashion, that's what we're here for, to help you think, plan, and live through those things. Great to chat with you this morning, Jack. It's a beautiful sunny day here in St. Pete, so hope you enjoy it.
Yep, I did. See you.
All right, talk to you later.